Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. So, you want to be a foot soldier, huh? Wouldn't be here if you didn't. The first step, being a foot soldier, is looking the part. Image is everything to the Foot Clan. We gotta make sure that we strike terror in our enemies. So, we gotta make sure you are looking good. First step, the ninja hood, face of the foot. To begin, you're gonna need a head form. That head form is gonna take the place of your noggin. You're gonna wrap that in cellophane and duct tape to make yourself a template for a foam helmet. You're gonna divide that in half and then put slits in each half so that it lays flat. You can trace it down onto a piece of foam. I use an old yoga mat. After cutting those out, you can use some tape and glue those seams back together to create your foam helmet. I also added another layer of foam right there around the eyes to make sure that I create some separation for that mesh that's going to go on later. When you're done with that, you wrap that in cellophane as well. Get some water-based clay to sculpt out your foot soldier face. You can also see those Easter eggs. Now those are going to come into play later, but those are opaque. You can't see through those. So you got to make sure you create little spaces underneath those Easter eggs for eye holes that you're going to be able to see out of. Now I forgot to make a video of the original time I made a silicone mold. So I made a little maquette. The first thing you're going to start off with here is 100% silicone, about 4 or 5 tubes. You're going to cut that tip off, leaving an opening about a ½ inch. Then you're going to get some hand soap and a cup of water. Put that hand soap in the water, mix that up real good. That hand soap is incredibly important because that is going to coat your fingers and allow you to manipulate the silicone in the creation of that mold, and the silicone won't stick to your fingers. So you're going to take that caulk and a caulk gun, put a bead down anywhere where you want your silicone mold. You're going to work your way back and forth. You're going to do your best not to go overlapping with those silicone beads, but you also want them to be very tight together. You may need to slow down and put some more silicone in the areas where you have larger divots, such as the eye sockets and the slits in the mouth. Once you get a good area covered, put your hands in that soapy water, start patting those beads down flat. It's a good idea to start on one side, work your way to the other so that you don't have any air pockets. Once you get the whole area covered, you're going to let that dry. And then, once it's dry, you're going to get yourself some rubbing alcohol. Put that on a paper towel or something like that. And you want to make sure you scrub your silicone real good. You want to make sure you get rid of all that soap residue. That soap residue will come back to haunt you later as your silicone mold starts to split apart. That soap residue will keep your silicone from sticking to itself when you do additional layers. Also, you can add burlap or cheesecloth within your mold to make sure that it doesn't tear. You'll also take a look right there on the top. I have an orange juice container. That's going to come into play later. After you finish what you're doing right there, you can use some Vaseline, petroleum jelly to rub down on your silicone mold. Next step, we're going to be making a case mold with plastic gauze. Now the case mold is very important because it's going to hold your silicone mold in place once you remove all the clay from the inside. So you're going to wrap that in your plastic gauze. Make sure to build up a really nice lip on the edge right there. You want to make sure you get a nice strong lip there because you have to do this in 2 parts. If you try to do it all in one, you wouldn't be able to get it off. Also, you want to make sure your case mold is opposite from the slit you're going to be putting in for your silicone mold. Once you make your first half and that lip, you want to get yourself some more Vaseline. Put that along the edge before you do your next half. If you do it without putting that silicone in place, what's going to happen is your plaster is just going to stick to it. And if the plaster sticks, you won't be able to get it apart. And it's going to be a real mess for you later on. You can see right there the way that plaster gauze separates right there on the sides, but the slit for the silicone goes up the back. So now we're going to be going on, removing our case mold, taking out our silicone mold and cleaning out all that clay. Now all we have is the Ed head with the foam helmet. The silicone mask goes on the outside of that, and then the case mold goes on the outside of that. Now that orange juice thing up on top, as I mentioned earlier, is very important. That is going to be the opening that we are going to be pouring our rigid foam through. The rigid foam is from Smooth On. This is a pourable foam, A and B, 2 parts. This particular version of it is version 3 of the rigid foam. It expands the most, but it does not have a self-skinning feature. Since it doesn't have a self-skinning feature, the actual casting that comes out isn't going to be as pretty as if we did have a self-skinning feature. But that's not really going to matter because it's going to go underneath the cloth, the hood. Now in here, we mix it 2 parts, 1-to-1 ratio. So you can see the first cup poured up to that line on the bottom of the solo cup. The next one's the same. Now I have my stirrer right next here. I want to make sure that's ready because once you start mixing these, the chemical reaction is very, very fast. So I'm going to pour that in, and I'm going to pour those two together and start mixing 30 Oroku Sakis as quickly as I possibly can. Right? So then I can pour that into my mold through that open orange juice lid. Mix that around real fast, and then go back and forth in with my mold to make sure it coats all the areas inside of that negative space. Notice how my case mold is duct taped together with real tight so that I make sure that it makes that positive shape within that negative shape area. Here the foam starts to come out the top through that hole that I drilled through that orange juice container lid. That's important as well because that little hole allows for the pressure to be released, but also the hole's not so big that all that excess energy goes out the top. It's making it spread through the mold, fill up all those negative spaces. Now after about 2 hours, it grows nice and rigid, and it's ready to demold. You can see where all that excess foam came out the side and off the bottom. It's very important that you accept the fact that some of it's going to come out the bottom, but that's good because that just goes to prove that it filled up all that available space and the energy inside started making it come out in areas you weren't expecting. But that's okay. It just means all your negative space has been filled. Oh yeah. Time to remove this duct tape and see what we ended up with. How much you want to bet he's pretty? Now don't be very violent when you're peeling these things apart. You don't want to break your mold. But you also want to make sure that your castings come out nice and smooth. There's the 2 case mold pieces. And we're going to split up the side here in the back, peeling those apart. And unveiling our efforts. Krang be praised, he's a beautiful bouncing baby boy. Little bit of a line there, a little scarage from the split, taken off the mold the first time. Not too bad looking though, rigid foam, nice and strong, breaks off pretty easy right there because it's so thin. Now, it's not the prettiest of castings, but that's okay because we're going to sand off a lot of that excess. We're going to run an X-Acto knife up the side there, cutting that away. You can see right there, that's a part of our foam helmet. So we're going to cut this area away. And also we're going to break off that little piece up at the top. So there we go. We've done a little bit of sanding, cleaning up a few more pieces, and we got a nice, healthy looking foot soldier face we're going to be able to play around with in just a little bit. Now this foam sands real easy. Also, you can use a Dremel tool or something like that to take off some of those burrs. Now we're going to be using a little bit of paint and some modeling paste. I got a little bit left here in this container, not a whole bunch, but I got some. Gonna brush that on. It goes on pretty thick. Has the consistency kind of a toothpaste, not as sticky. We can use that to fill in any air pockets or anything else that we see that are beyond our efforts of sanding off. Now the black on there is going to help us out as well, because we definitely don't want to see any lighter value colors through our hood, so the black works out pretty nicely. Just enough in here. Oh yeah! Now I also had to add a little bit of black around our foam helmet in any area that would be visible, for the same reason that we painted our other foot soldier face black. That's going to fit right over here. I got to be careful, make sure I know that the eye holes are going to be set low in that mask, just peering right over the very top of those cheekbones, those beautiful, beautiful cheekbones. Now here is the beautiful purple hood. Now this hood right here is a motorcycle mask. You can purchase one of these, one of the fine foot soldier retailers, or if you'd like, you can find it there on eBay. Right there. If you get it from a US seller, you know it'll come quicker. That can go right over the top of our foot soldier mask. You start seeing any imperfections in there, make sure to take care of those before you move any further. Using some T-pins, you can start positioning the motorcycle mask on the top of my foot soldier mask. Taking up any slack. Also using that center seam down the forehead to make sure that I match up and make it as evenly as possible. Push pins will go right into the foam, nice and easy. Don't worry, you won't see it. From the back, you can see where those pins are going through. And then, from the front, you get a nice look of how it forms that shape right there across the brow. I'm going to go back into the hot glue gun to glue these down into the inside. I like using a high heat hot glue gun because pain is my friend. I'll lick my fingers and press those things down. Get a few blisters, but suffer for your clan. That's what I like to say. Now we got to make those meshes. We don't want people looking in and seeing our eyes, just in case you might be a little afraid of some green shelled freak coming your way. Use 2 layers of mesh here. Hot glue gun. Put a bead down, make a circle, and here we go again. Pain is our ally. Lick your finger and press that high heat hot glue down. Don't let them see you cry. Flatten that high heat hot glue right down. It's gluing down to the floor there as well, but don't worry, it'll pull up real quick. Then you can just flatten it on the other side as well. Grab yourself your katana or your scissors and cut those out. You can then just hot glue those right there in the inside as well. Now we got some Easter eggs.